Hello, ladies and gentlemen. All right, guys. Now, you know what we're going to do is, you already know about the muslin fabric. It's like your prototype fabric. We already know about that. Okay. So, now, our draft that we've done for the skirt. The darts, the holes and all. And we'll talk more about those holes when we get ready to put it on oak tag. But now we have to place this on our muslin fabric. And so, here we go. Okay, so, your draft. This is the front fold line. Have to put it on the fold of the fabric. And like I said before, this is not a sewing class, so you should already know if it's on a fold line, it's on the fold line. You should already know when you place your back pattern, it's parallel to the edge. So we talked about that before. And for some of you designers who think that, you know, need to know how to sew, you do. You don't have to know how to sew well, but to put a pattern together, you have to know how the garment goes together. All right, so now we have that. Now remember, our basic draft does not have the seam allowances. So now we're going to add seam allowances. And this is why you want a see-through ruler. So if you can look closely right here where I'm getting ready to do my marks at, I'm going to add 1/2 inch seam allowance at the waist, 1/2 inch seam allowance in the center back. I'm not going to put any hem allowance on it, and it's 1/2 inch seam allowance at the side seam. And when you mark it, you go like so, parallel. So if you can get a good close-up look on this right here, parallel to the edge. And so I'm marking it parallel to the edge. That's why it's important to have a see-through ruler, because I'm seeing through the ruler to see my line. And so now I can easily draw what I need. For example, let's talk about this back piece right here. When I get ready to do this back, you know, these see-through rulers, 1/2 inch, I'm just going to, since it's straight, I'm just going to lay it down like so, and I can draw a straight line. If I had that other ruler that I didn't see through, I'd have to go like this and put little dots. So the pattern makers, you need that see-through ruler. There we go, like so. Mark a 1/2 inch on the other side here. Then we're going to cut it out. And you don't want to pick up your pattern pieces and cut it out like you were in elementary school when you were cutting paper with scissors. You pick the paper up and so on and so forth. There's a certain way that you have to really learn how to get the cutting correctly. As pattern makers, designers, we want our designs and patterns to be exact. They have to look professional. You have to be professional. So now I'm marking around the front, and I have it's on the fold in the front. So the front is cut 1, and the back, you know, has your seam allowance in the center back, 1/2 inch, because I would plan on putting, you know, maybe an invisible zipper in it, but we're just going to fold it over. Now let's talk about cutting. When you cut, oh, one last thing. Our darts, make sure you put your notches up here in the right spot, because if your notch is off, you sew it up, you're going to get something different in your waist. If your waist is supposed to be 28, make sure your notches are exact so your waist can be 28. We don't want to have to be figuring out, well, what's wrong if the waist is too big or too small. All right? And, okay, so I'm going to make sure I have that. So here I go. When I cut, I'm right-handed. I want to look right here. So I'm cutting this way. So you can kind of say it's maybe counterclockwise, because I need to see that I'm cutting on the line. I don't want to be outside of the line, because if you think about it, if you're outside of the line, you just made your pattern a little bit bigger. And then when you start to grade, next thing you know, your grading is off and you're wondering why. And your team is looking at you like, I thought you knew what you were doing. So remember, you want to cut on the line or right inside of the line. And the way to do that is I need to see it. So I'm going to cut this way. Now let me show you the wrong way to cut. So for those of you who may be doing it wrong, you'll know how to do it right. If I go like this, I'm looking at the outside of the line. I need to see the pattern that I'm cutting out. Over here, I'm just seeing the outskirts. I don't want to see that. I need to see what I'm cutting. So that's why it's important to cut this way. Everybody clear on that? I know I can't hear you, but if you got any questions, you know what to do. You can always just email me, go to the website, catch me on the live broadcast, because I am available for you. Now, The other thing you got to make sure you do is, now we want to make sure that we see our notches. For example, when you're doing the professional way, you're not putting those little triangles on your fabric. We're done with that. You just take your scissor and you notch it just a little bit. Just a little bit. That's all you need. Okay, we got to do the same for the darts, because your darts have to be in the right spot. There. And then also notch the center front. We always have to know where our center front is. When we get ready to make waistbands, center front is important. It helps keep you stabilized, helps you know where you are. Center front, you need center front. All right, I'm going to go ahead and mark through for my darts. Now this is how I do it. Remember, everybody does it a little bit differently. I would take my pen, well, since there's a hole here, now I have the end of my dart. Remember, the end of the dart is a 1/2 inch below, and we're going to talk about that when we put it on the O tag. But I'll put a pin through it because you need it on the other side. Don't forget about the other side. You got a left and a right. Put my pin through, and that's how I am going to mark. So, ladies and gentlemen, you get your pattern, your prototype on here, and your draft, and you mark around it. Make sure you have your notches. Make sure you have everything, and then you do your front, back, and then you are ready to sew. So the next step is we're going to talk about how we analyze the fit. All right? So let's get ready for that. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we just want to make sure that you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, see-through ruler. When you're marking a 1/2 inch, so you see how I can see through the ruler, so that 1/2 inch mark is over that line, and now I'm just going to draw my line like that. It has to be parallel to the edge, so if that dart has a little curve on it, a point, whatever it is, that's what we want. So here we go, and that's how we're going to be marking it. That's how you mark your 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay? Now, remember, you want to put your notch here, your notch there. Now, let's talk about this back and why it's important to have the see-through ruler. See, with the see-through ruler, I can see that it's a 1/2 inch from the edge. I can just lay my ruler down and draw a line. If I don't have a see-through ruler, then I have to come here and put a mark, and then put another mark, and put another mark. And as entrepreneurs know, time is money. You want to be precise, but you still want to be quick about it. So here I go. 1/2 inch, I got a nice line. Practice that if you need to, guys. Practice makes perfect.